to another edition of Life is People. Well, tonight I'm honoured to finally kind of speak to someone. I was just saying before we went live, our paths have crossed on many occasions, so it's finally good to meet. So before we go any further tonight, how are you doing tonight, Jack?
I'm fantastic. Yeah, I'm really good. Thanks. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast. It was. I'm flattered.
Oh, don't be flattered, man. I mean, I've like I said, our paths have crossed on a few occasions. Well, let's start with a good place. I mean, what was your takeaway thoughts of the gig in Richmond?
So Richmond, yeah. So that was it was quite the whole build up to the gig made it for us as Waco made it even more special, really, because we had a gig cancelled in Nottingham like the week before our tour started, and so that was a nightmare. I was like, well, it wasn't a nightmare, but it was more like, oh, we're on the road, it'd be good to play a gig. And I grew up in Richmond, so I was like, I wonder, just on the off chance, Sign Down are doing anything, or Ceiling Demons, and they had this big gig booked, and they were like, mate, why don't we combine it, and we'll get Waco on as well. So it worked out really well in that sense of saving our ass. But the gig was amazing, man. I thought there was a lot of love in the room, and I thought that everyone played really well. Zara, Ruth, Snake Eyes, I thought we played well, and I thought Ceiling Demons absolutely stole the show, yourself included. I thought that the addition of you painting on stage, it was so, I don't know, it was so unique, and it really accentuated their performance, the music performance. You know what I mean? It for me, it brought me into the moment, which live music often does. But it was kind of like, wow, there's a guy up there painting, and then what you were painting was really captivating, and to watch it unfold live, it just made me think. You very rarely see artwork when it's finished, right? You see artwork all over the place. Every time you leave the house, you see artwork. Adverts, shop logos, but then to see it from a blank canvas to an image was special, and it reminded me that, oh, you don't actually see that very often. So my takeaway was a lot of love in the air. I saw some old friends. I saw some people that I've not seen for maybe over 10 years, maybe more. It's not necessarily because I don't go back to Richmond much, which I do now and again, but you don't ever get to see everybody, do you? So it was sweet, man. I left with a heart full of emotion. What are your takeaways?
Well, as I think Dan signed it up perfectly, there was Ghosts in the Machine that night.
Yeah.
But I mean, I like what you're saying. Well, I'm honoured by what you're saying about the art thing, because just sort of give you a brief overlap. I've kind of always been. What got me into art originally was, dude, I was a huge Maiden fan when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So, and I love Derek Riggs, which is old school, if you know anything, the Killers, Iron Maiden, that kind of stuff. And I've always kind of been to many gigs over my time. I thought, why isn't someone up there just painting on stage live with them? Because there used to be, and I don't know how you feel about it, maybe it's a different conversation, but there used to be such a connection between the artist and the musician. Back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, it was like literally someone like Derek Riggs was commissioned to do specific artwork for that band, and they were almost linked. And what got me into kind of metal stroke rock music was album covers. I was like, wow. And that kind of got lost in the 90s with digital art, and now it's kind of the two creative elements of the artist and the musician have been separated so far apart that one of my missions is to bring them back. And that's why I love what you're saying, because my mission is to kind of think, well, why don't more bands do this? Because so many bands, I mean, I would love to see someone playing with you. I would love to play with you. I mean, trust me, I would like, because it gives a kind of visual expression of a night and a gig, and particularly with Waco, man, you're so energetic, man, what could be created. So that's kind of. I mean, I'd love to know what you think, because then sort of going back to this 1 second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. Now, I love the artwork on that. So who did the artwork for this for the EP?
So this was my friend Alice Old, and I liked her artwork for a long time, and it was I just thought, like, I don't know, I wanted to do something bold for the album cover, which we try and do. It's a bit I don't know, a bit self-involved, but like, fuck it, let's go bold. So I hit her up and I was like, you know, is there anything you're working on, or any ideas you've got? And I told her the album title and some of the song lyrics and the themes, and she came up with that, and then we superimposed ourselves on top. To be honest, it was I'm happy with it. I think her piece of artwork is great. I think it just looks it's amazing. I'm glad we worked with her on that one. We did another one with on our new album. I don't know if you've seen the artwork for that.
Yeah.
But that's really a bit Salvador Dali-esque, surrealist, and that's by a guy called James McCarthy. And we actually got in touch with him. We found his art online, or psychedelic artwork, and we were looking through some artists, and he's had like exhibitions in the Saatchi Gallery in London, and he just amazing stuff. And then, you know, sometimes you have to throw caution to the wind. I said, let's just send him an email, see what happens. And he got back to us and was like, yeah, I'll do the artwork. And that's actually one of his that's one of his paintings already. That's one of his I can't remember what it's called, but to be honest, do you know what? I'll share what actually happened. I don't think it's private. I hope it's not. We loved that piece of artwork, and we were like, we want something a bit like this, and we gave him some. We didn't want to dictate too much about what we wanted, because we kind of trusted his vision, and we wanted him to just be free, to be as out there or as surrealist as he wanted to be, and then when we got in touch with him, we gave him the song titles, Hope Rituals, that's what the album's called, some of the song themes, and the overall feel of what we feel the album sounds like, or what we're trying to portray with it. And he gave us something back which is amazing. It was really, really amazing. And it just, you know what I'm going to say, it just didn't feel like the album to us. It's strange. Artwork is weird, right? We could both look at the same piece of artwork and I could feel, wow, that's very sorrowful or sad. But you might look at it and say, oh, that's hopeful. You know, sometimes it's open to interpretation. Once the artist does it, once it's out there, you know, what was going through their head when they made it might not be always picked up, communicated perfectly to the audience. They might see something else in it. So that's what makes art so special. So when he sent us his artwork for our album, we were like, shit, man, this is amazing. It looked kind of like a folk album, I would say. Like a kind of, like, you know, the band Caravan, or maybe, I can't think of an example, but like a 60s, 70s folk album. That's what I felt. And it didn't suit our album. So then we went back to him, we're like, thank you so much. We paid him, obviously. And then we were like, we really like this other piece of artwork that you've got. Can we use that? And then we came to an agreement. He said, yeah, you can just use that if you want. Like, I've made it years ago. And so I guess that's the lessons to be learned there, is that I find it actually incredibly hard working with artists. Unless you give them, with my band, unless you give them total free reign to do what they want and trust them. Because I've found personally, when you give people, when I don't enjoy giving people too many directions, because I think it kind of hinders their creative process. I don't know. I guess you could say we want blues and blacks or greens, but you know what I mean. Like it's because I'm so passionate about the music and it means a lot to me. It's hard for me to not be a bit of a control freak with the artwork, you know, and that's not helpful to anybody. I don't know, when you do the Ceiling Demon stuff, is it a big conversation, or do you just listen to the music, or how does it come about?
Well, it's usually, and it's kind of a bit of a tag I put on a lot of my posts I put out, but music inspires art. So I will listen to certain tunes, I've kind of got very interlinked sort of process. I know them really well, so they will send me demos and things that are coming up on anything they're new going to create, and then I will just literally go away, and I'll end up, well, my usual places, I'll end up maybe creating 5 or 6 pieces for a whatever song is. I mean, a perfect example is like so the very first album, Dual Sides, it's when I very first met them, and I ended up spending literally probably 2 or 3 months painting a really in-depth kind of painting, which I thought would work really well with Dual Sides. And I thought, okay, I better do another one because, like you said, choices and stuff like that. I did another album cover, and that took about another month. And at the end of that, I had this kind of moment. I thought, because it's probably the same as when you're a musician. You spend so long writing and doing stuff, and you kind of like, when it's all away from you feel like you're drained. All the adrenaline just goes from you. And I had a canvas there, and I just thought, just in that moment, like just painting something, just as a little side thing. And then I sent across that to Dan and Si, and they were like, "Oh, that last one you did was amazing." I'm like, that took me about half an hour. We're on my head, and that was what became the album cover. So that's kind of the process we go with, because I think, again, goes back to what I was trying to say before. To me, there's I don't know, maybe I'm being just how I stand, but I think there's a deep connection between the artist and the musician. I think music and art are really deeply related on quite some sort of conscious level, So I will go with whatever I feel. And to be fair, as you know Dan and Si, but they have directions like you, and I think that's needed. But equally, you kind of, without sounding too kind of hippy dippy sort of thing, but you almost merge in a mind, and then it sort of syncs together, and out comes the final artwork, which is, to me, goes back to what I was saying. I think it's been lost in the world of digital art, or in this world where we're living. That's my sort of process. You know what I mean? Because I don't think they're, like I said, I think they're integrated on quite a deep level. So that's how I work it.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a lot of there's a bit of an echo there. There's I always think about this, what you're saying there, the interconnectedness of it, because if you got an album that, for example, in the days of copying CDs, so when you used to burn CDs or download stuff illegally online, like some of the first CDs I got were almost all copied CDs. So like my auntie gave me like a Marilyn Manson album, a Kills album. She gave me like loads of stuff, and then I borrowed like a Linkin Park album from my neighbor and copied it, or they copied it and gave it to me. And then you get so used to like looking at, like, it's weird, like a lot of albums I knew or got to know, I'd never seen the band or their album cover, right? And so this is a good example of, like, it's just like, oh, I just know the music. I didn't even know how many people were in the band or where they were from sometimes. And then when I'd go to a CD shop or go to HMV and you'd see the album cover, you go, oh, that's interesting. Like, I didn't hear that like that. If you know what I mean? It's a bit like when an album cover is quite distinct or has a colour, for example. I'm thinking of Astral Weeks by Van Morrison. I love that album. And I can't listen to it without somehow seeing the album cover. You know what I mean? In my mind's eye. Because you get so used to them being linked together. And I guess that goes back to, when people used to buy vinyls and CDs much more, they just look at the vinyl for ages because you've bought it, it's in your hand, you're looking at the back, you're looking at the front again, you're reading the lyrics, and then you associate it with those colours. And I guess there's a lot to be said for that, because certain colours, I don't know, because people see colours, right? When they hear music, you get synesthesia, or when they hear sounds or whatever. I wonder what the science is between what link what we relate colors to in our mind. Maybe it's all unique to each person, you know, like the tropes are the classics are like red symbolizes passion and anger, but I wonder if red doesn't symbolize that to a lot of people. Maybe red feels, don't know, like a different emotion. And so I agree they are extremely connected, and yeah, some of the best albums, some of my favorite albums in the world, like you kind of, like I said, every time you hear a snippet from the song, you kind of get a flash of the album artwork in your head, and they coalesce in some way. It's pretty amazing, really.
Well, going to what you just said there, I think, again, because obviously I spend a lot of time contemplating this, and I think a lot of it's cultural, because you can go to certain parts of the world, and I've been lucky enough and fortunate enough to live in parts of the world, and certain colours will mean intrinsically to different cultures, obviously, because they have certain relates to it. But as an overview, I think music and art are the two universal languages we've got as human beings. I mean, if you need any example of this, what we've seen in the last 2 years, language itself, words can be twisted, they can be, you know, used in such negative or positive manners, but above all that is music and art. So I think, you know, they, like you say, I think it's almost impossible to, I don't know, put into a small box of what does a certain chord mean, or what does a certain note mean, or what does a certain color mean, because like you said, it's one of the beautiful things about us being human beings. It's fractal. We're all so different. We're not all just, we all see red and we feel passion, and we don't all just hear a G chord and feel happy, and an A minor and we all feel sad. That's what's the beautiful thing about music and art.
Yeah, for sure. Art and music are like they're communication, right? It's a kind of a form of communication, although they do. That's kind of how I see it. It's like it's communicating a feeling, sometimes one that you can't put into words. So in that way, it's very important. You know, when you see something, you feel something when you see a piece of artwork or you hear a music, and it's not always an easy feeling to sum up with words, because words can be quite limited. You know, there are words in other languages that we don't have in this language. Therefore, I always wonder whether we feel that feeling in our language as much as the language that has a word for that feeling, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like to say there are certain words in, I saw it in a film. There's a word where there was a word that meant when two people want to make amends, when two people want to make amends, but neither wants to be the first person. No, sorry. When two people want to do something, but they don't want to be the first person to do it. So that could be two people who are in love secretly with each other, but they don't want to be the first person to put themselves out there. Or it could be two warring tribes that are, you know, they want to call a truce, but they don't want to be the first person to do it. And I always think we don't have a word for that. And I wonder if, because we don't have a word for that, we don't feel it as much. And then I guess it's a long way of me saying, like, music and art communicate something that perhaps that often words can't, right? That even especially music without lyrics, like lyrics again can be quite limited. Obviously I'm a lyricist myself, but words can be like, they can be interpreted in many different ways. But I don't know, when I listen to ambient music, it's just like instrumental music or classical or anything that's without lyrics, you think, wow, that just opens up a whole forest in my mind, you know. And then I don't know, maybe it's the same for artwork as well. If art's, I don't know though, but art can convey loads of different emotions, even if it's a portrait of somebody, for example. That doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to interpret that in one way.
Yeah,
you know, there could be many different things that you're trying to communicate with that. So I don't know, maybe that's underselling it, but I think it's communication, right? Art and music, kind of like, this is inside of me, and I'm going to communicate it to you wherever you are in the world or in the country or whatever. I'm going to communicate with you, and sometimes it resonates. It doesn't always have to resonate. It could just be like, oh, okay, that's how that person is feeling at that time. It could just be like, oh, that's a different way of doing it. It's interesting. It's interesting. Another thing that I was thinking with artwork is I was interviewing this guy, and he used to make flyers for punk and hardcore shows in the 80s in LA and in Seattle in America. And he said that was he didn't realize it, but he was exhibiting his art, and it was being seen by loads of people, even though he's just making a flyer. He's making a flyer for, you know, Suicidal Tendencies or whatever band, Black Flag. And he was like, I didn't realize it, but he's like, I would never have got the artwork seen by as many people if I'd just put it into a gallery, or if I tried to make it as an artist. But he said, because you're working with artists, you kind of, and obviously whatever following the artist has, the band can be introduced to them as well. But like, it's interesting that from an artist's point of view, it's a really good way of getting your stuff seen and to get it into people's hands. Because every time someone buys a vinyl that you've done the artwork for, they've bought your print, right? Or like, not print, they've bought your image. And I wonder, it's a great collaboration, isn't it? Like, it's a collaboration, right? Like, I wouldn't, like, yeah, it's a collaboration, and that sums up the symbiotic relationship between art and music, right? Like that your artwork's getting seen by everyone, like Ceiling Demons. Everyone that follows your artwork is hearing Ceiling Demons, and that's where the cohesion comes.
Exactly. Now, I mean, I want to sort of throw this back to you, because, okay, so that's a very direct question. So, what is your process as a lyricist? I'm always fascinated by this, and I'll break it right down to its smallest element. Do you write the words first and then comes the chord or the tune, or do you have the music in mind and then it comes the words? And equally, before that, do you write on paper, or, because now we're living in 2021, are you writing this on your phone? And then, I mean, even the very simple process, is it still the old hand on paper, or is it electronic?
Well, do you know what? It's a bit of a cop out, but it's almost always different. However, I have these inspiration comes in the most unexpected times for me. Like, I'll be on the bus, or I'll be walking to work, or I'll be, like trying to get to sleep. That's a good one. Trying to get to sleep, and I have to find my phone and write something down. So I'm a big user of my notes on my phone. I write all sorts of stuff in there. But sometimes I'll write like a chorus. No, sorry, I'll just write something that rhymes, or one line. And then then when I'm picking up my guitar or I'm in band practice, I sometimes get it out and I go, oh, I did write some things down. And I think, oh, does this sound like it would work with this song? Or is this too much? Is this not going to work? So that's one way of doing it. So I've got all these different lines, all these different verses written in the phone. So it's a bit like poetry. And then you move a few words around and it fits with the music. And then but that's digital, so I use my phone. And then sometimes I'll sit at the keyboard. I'll kind of set time aside for me to write music, which is a luxury, really. That's real. That's when I'm really treating myself, that I can just go, you know what, for the rest of the day, I'm just gonna turn my computer off and just sit at my keyboard and play. So when I do that, I'll have a pen and a pad, because I find the phone or my laptop's too distracting. And then that's how I wrote loads. That's how I wrote a lot of the skeletons of ideas, just on the keyboard, just fucking around, and kind of, I don't know. It'd be great to be really freewheeling, but I have to be really disciplined in my life, because I'm a freelance journalist. So I am my own boss, and I have to motivate myself. I have to be self-motivated. So unfortunately, even though it's not part of my character at all, it's not part of who I am, I have to be really disciplined and motivated when it comes to writing songs as well. And I've learned that. That's a learned skill. That is not like, I'm not an organized person at all. Like, if it was up to me, it'd just be, I'd just be cruising around in my Birkenstocks and my board shorts and just writing poetry on the beach. That'd be wicked for me. I'd love that. However, I have to be quite strict. Weirdly, in the creative way. So I'm like, right, for the next 4 hours, I'm going to sit at my keyboard, I'm going to write, and I'm going to play. And I'm going to play in every sense of the word, play, free my mind up, stop, kind of live in the moment and just play and then see what comes out. And that's when I have the pen and the pad. And that's probably when you get the best ideas. But that's when I get the best ideas. But it's important to play, just to play. You probably do this with art, like not an idea, not like a commission, not like I don't know, not an end goal in sight. Just pick up brushes, or I pick up my pen, and then you start writing, or start playing, or start messing around, and then whatever comes out is a bonus, really. And it's, I don't know, I need to do it more because we live in a very productivity based. I do live in a very productivity based world, where it's about producing something, like having something to show for the time that I've spent on it. But really, that's not always healthy. Just like do nothing for a bit and paint, and that just exercises your creative muscles, your creative brain, like a muscle. Just exercise it, and then the next day do it again, and the next day do it again. It's not like it always has to make something. And so that's what I need to do more of. And you've reminded me to do more of that, because that is how I get a lot of songs. But then I shouldn't just do that when I'm trying to write songs. I should just do it for some relaxation and for some mental stimulation. So I'm going to do that more.
No, I think you're right, my friend. I think it's like it's a muscle you have to kind of use, and if you don't do it, and you just don't, just like you say, for the enjoyment or the pleasure, that muscle will become weak, and before you know it, it becomes harder and harder and harder. And it's the element of creativity. And one of the things that I've always loved about you guys, always, ever since I very first saw you, and obviously I've listened to EP many times, listened to your stuff many times. I love the positivity that comes through, especially in the world that we live in and the culture we live in, where there's so much negativity, fear pumped. I love your positivity. Now, how have you? It kind of relates to sort of my point. How have you found with that kind of? Because I would say I'm probably very much common with you. I have a very positive mindset, and how have you found the last 2 years? Obviously, because maybe it's a difference between me being an artist, because I'm not really going out there and playing in front of crowds a lot, other than I'm doing demons. But how have you found trying to keep that positive mindset, particularly as a band, and then going out there and facing lockdowns and all the negativity? I mean, how have you actually found that as you as a human being?
It's it felt like we needed to keep doing. To me, it felt like we needed to keep writing music, keep putting stuff out online, making music videos. We released our new album in lockdown in August last year, which was perhaps a cavalier decision, but it felt like we needed to do it for ourselves and for our handful of fans. I was like, you know what? There was a certain. This is going to sound. I mean this with all respect to everyone that's suffered during the lockdown, but there was a brief period where I felt a lot, and maybe I still do feel it, a slight optimism for a bit of a reset for the way we lived. Yeah. I felt that, and I was like, you know what? Like, this is fucked up. People are dying. This is very serious. But I don't want to go back to normal. Normal wasn't working for a lot of people. Let's go back to let's build a new world afterwards. Let's even if personal. Let's do things differently. What have we learned from this personally? What can we do differently for ourselves after this? Because this has been awful for so many people, and some people haven't lived through it. So people have died. So that was an optimism. So I felt that a lot in the beginning of the pandemic, and then I think, do you know what? Like, we wrote the songs the year before. Obviously, you write music before, quite a bit before you release it. We wrote them in 2019, And we were going through a bereavement, and we still are in a massive way, because our bassist passed away at the end of 2018. And it was really tragic and really sudden, and it really, I'm still processing it now, to be honest. It's really just the worst thing you could ever imagine. And so we wrote this album to help us deal with that. So as the band, we were going through hardships. We were really going through hardships, because we were like, should we continue with the band? Is it right to continue with Chris's band after he's died, and all these moral quandaries? And then so we got through that. Yeah, we got through that somehow. We got through it, and the band still survived. For want of a better phrase, the band still continued. And so when the pandemic came, I guess we were like, part of me was like, I've been through worse. We've been through worse. Our fucking bassist died. Like, he's 30 years old. Like, not been through worse in terms of the pandemic, but as a band, I was like, you know what, we can get through this. We've got through the unthinkable. So what else have you got? And those songs that we wrote in 2019, the ones that helped us grieve, mourn, accept the difficult situation that we were in, they took on a new meaning. I'm just realizing this, by the way, while I'm saying it, but they kind of took on a new meaning when the pandemic hit, because it was like, oh yeah, you feel like shit. Like, everyone feels like shit. The whole world is being flipped upside down. I was like, welcome to my world a little bit. I felt like that. It's been hard for us for the last year, and so I guess that's why the songs resonated with people. And the first one we released was Good Days, and I feel so good today. It's been a while since I felt this way, and that was a personal thing. It was like, it's a positive song, an uplifting song, but also with a nod, with an acknowledgement of that difficult time that we've been through. And then when that came out at the beginning of the pandemic, and we made the video where we sourced clips from our fans and friends all over the world of them rocking out in their bedroom and singing it. We sourced all that, and I don't know, that felt like and after we released that, almost felt like we had to put the album out. I was like, okay, it's bringing us joy in what is a really messed up situation. It's other people seem to be enjoying it, and it kind of felt a bit. The album kind of felt a bit prescient, although it was like, oh, it felt kind of like The Dark Before the Dawn is another song. This is the dark before the dawn, which is what a lot of people. That's a hopeful thing to a hopeful idea to entertain during lockdowns, because you have to see a light at the end of the tunnel. Because I don't know, that helped me continue. So the positivity. So yeah, you're right. We are a positive bunch, but it's kind of in the face of adversity sometimes, and I just feel like, as he said, there's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of criticisms, and a lot of, I don't know what it is, but people seem to like to bring people down sometimes. And I think if our band, a little blip on a in the grand scheme of things, in the long timeline of pop music and the human race, if we can cheer people up or communicate a bit of the joy that I've managed to find, the optimism that I've managed to tap into, if we can communicate that through our music, even for 3.5 minutes, then I think we're kind of doing a good thing. We're doing something that I can be proud of, because there is a space for sad music, there's a space for heartbroken music, there's a space for all of that. But I guess with this band, we just thought, why don't we just give people a bit of escapism, a bit of fun and escapism, and kind of yeah, I'm very privileged and I'm very lucky, and I've got my health, and I've got so many things to be thankful for, so many things to be grateful for, so many, and I think about them all day, every day, and we've all got things to be grateful for, but sometimes we just don't see it. So that's where I harvest my joy and my optimism from, and my, contentment. So if I can communicate that to whoever's listening, as I said, then that's quite good, because people don't always see. People sometimes find it hard to see the positives in life, to see how special things are, to see how short our time is here. People find it difficult, and that's not their fault, because we live in a pretty sick society, and sometimes people are chemically imbalanced. Or, I wish there was a more sensitive way of putting it, but they have clinical depression, they have clinical anxiety. There's all these different, and even if you don't have any examples of poor mental health, then even just going about your day to day, you feel like shit sometimes. And I think if you can put our music on and go, hey, actually life's not too bad, then that's good. I think that's what I want to do with my music. Yeah.
Oh, perfect, man. I mean, I know I concur completely, because as you may or may not know, I mean, that's again the root of the Ceiling Demons. I mean, they lost one of their guys, Cody, and it does make you and it's one of those things. It's almost a cliche, as you said, but I don't think people. I think all of us. I mean, I'm as guilty as anyone to. It sounds like a cliche, but you have to live your last day like it is your last, and you have to appreciate, smell the roses, as they say. But we are so fortunate to live in the greatest days. I mean, these are the greatest days to be living in. We're not, for all the negativity, we're not, we as a human species are quite a good point in our lives. We're not dying at 30 anymore. There's, we're not, like it was 100 years ago, where we're all being sent to muddy trenches. So it's appreciation. It's appreciation for this beautiful thing called life, which I think, hopefully, going back to what you said, hopefully that's going to be, for want of a better word, the reset. Well, people just appreciate the people around you, appreciate the small things, appreciate this beautiful thing called life. Now, I have to go back, because one of the things that I'm often asked, I kind of go around spreading the word of you to everybody I know, saying, you've got to go and check out Waco. So, right, where did the name come from? Is that literally Waco, Texas? Are we going back to the old Waco, Texas thing?
Yeah. Why do people give you funny looks when you recommend?
People love it. I love it just for that name, because they, people I hang around with are all like into the conspiracy of what happened at Waco.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, do you know what? I guess we although we were talking about being optimistic and that, and I think that anger can be optimistic sometimes. Anger makes action makes change, right? And so I remember reading about the Waco massacre, where this religious group were killed at the hands of the US government, the ATF, and it upset me. And I also thought, I thought that's really fucked up, and I thought that needs to not happen again. If things get forgotten, then we're kind of doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past, right? And that isn't really old. That's like 25 years old. That was like in 1994. So 94, was it? Yeah, 94. So you think like that's not even that long ago, and I've kind of got a problem with authoritarianism. So I guess that's where that comes from. And I just thought, so we thought Waco, it's quite a striking name. People recognize it, and people who know recognize it. And also I thought, if people Google us and they find anything about the Waco siege and the cult and everything, then I'm fine with that. Like, if they learn about that, that's as a byproduct of trying to find my band, I'm fine with that, because I think it's healthy to distrust our government, and for Americans to distrust their government, because again, like it's about building a better tomorrow, and having some self-worth, and being like, you know what, we shouldn't bend over and take it, as the phrase goes. Like we should have, we're worth more than that. We're worth more than being killed at the hands of, being killed at the hands of those that are meant to look after us. Like that's it's oppression in its purest form. It happens all the time. And it's so that's something we wanted to highlight. So we could have become a really, I don't know, maybe people are drawn in by that and then have an idea of who we are, what we're doing. It maybe skews their perception of us because it's just such a bonkers name. But ultimately, it's about healthy distrust of your government, and like compassion. Of course, these people were, of course, the Branch Davidians who were at Waco, living there and had their commune. They, of course, a lot of people did not relate to their views and their beliefs. David Koresh said that he was like the second coming of Jesus, right? It's pretty fringe as far as beliefs go, but they should have been killed, should they? Like, what I mean? There's so many, they're people at the end of the day. Freedom of belief is important to me as well. So it's like, so I guess there's some compassion in there as well. Yeah, like because it's very, and it's this is something you see all the time. The crazy Waco cult. It's like there's wackos down in Waco. You think, yeah, sure they were kind of pretty out there, but also again they were fucking killed. They the ATF set the building on fire with the men, women, and children in there.
Yeah,
and wasn't like 100 and it was like 90 people burnt to death in there, like hidden in the basement. It's like, come on, like that is medieval, but it was only in the 90s. So there you go. That's what we call Waco. But we've actually had, I've had a few times people from Waco, Texas, ask me. So we've met like people online or sold them T-shirts or they followed us on Facebook. Waco. And I do feel a little bit bad saying, it's because of that, that siege that happened in Waco. Because I'm sure if you live there, you're probably like, oh man, like there's more to us than that. You know what I mean? So I do feel a bit bad, but for the wider world, people know Waco, the city in Texas, because of the siege. The siege. It was like a shootout between a religious group and the ATF, the alcohol, tobaccos, and firearms division. So that's it. What do you know about Waco? Do you remember?
Well, I mean, again, maybe just because of the age I am, I remember it quite vividly. Really, I remember watching it on TV, and it was unreal to see. This is on TV. They're showing this. They're showing human beings being burnt alive on TV, and equally at the time. I was still to this day, God bless him. I'm a huge Bill Hicks fan. I love Bill Hicks.
Yes,
me too. I was privileged enough to see him twice, and I had a couple of really good conversations with him. And the second time I came back, I had a conversation with him, it was just after the Waco thing, and and I don't know if you're aware, but it kind of sent him on a absolute line of tangent of everything. What you just said,
yes.
Like that righteous anger, like this isn't right, and so that's where I kind of got into it, because it was kind of, I intrinsically knew that what governments can be like, and what authoritarian states can be like. But to see this in real time, and like you say, the spin that was put on it, and what to this day, it's always got me that why is this not talked about more to this day? You know what I mean? I've always thought it's been kind of pushed aside, but then I don't know, we live in times when a lot of this stuff is just, it's kind of like, it's almost like chip wrapper, something horrific happens and next day you forget about it, and it's like, and I mean, it goes back to what you said before as well, because I mean, ultimately, okay, if a group of, like you said, if a group of people want to freely associate with each other, okay, he's calling himself Jesus, what's the crime? It's just a bunch of people, and so that's where it kind of really, it was one of the first things that really kind of got me really kind of digging under the skin of what the media can do, how things are spun in society, how things are, and again, authoritarian states, and how close we all are if we don't make the music, if we don't make the art, if we as a small little individual parts of what we do, if we're not doing this, this can so easily happen. I think people become immune and think, oh, that happens over in the third, happens in Africa, that happens in Asia, that doesn't go on, and it can happen. We're all human beings, and it can happen to anyone at any time.
Yeah, for sure. I do think that it's important to say that I don't think the Branch Davidians were saints, and perhaps not even totally innocent, because they had a lot of firearms, right? And that was, well, in America people can have firearms. That's just their culture. But I think that some people wanted to leave, or there was talks of him having like several girlfriends or wives, and they were, but they wanted to. The ATF wanted to shut them down because they were living outside of something that they could control, right? So I don't think he had a license for the guns. To be honest, it's been so long since I read about it. But that's why it ended in tragedy. Well, sorry, that's not why it ended in tragedy. That's why it escalated quickly, because they didn't just come out with their hands up. They said, no, fuck you. I've got an AK-47. I'm going to shoot you. So they had a shootout with the cops, which, I mean, depending on where you stand, like, it's either pretty cool or pretty, people are libertarians, a lot of libertarians over there, and that can be left wing, right wing, whatever. So it's in, like you said, like, it's a really good thing to study or to read into, to understand a lot of different dynamics of the media, spin, as he said, or smear campaigns, and also the hand of authoritarianism, hand of authority, and also what happens when you get what happens when everyone's got guns, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like a perfect storm, that was, I think, of a few things, and also like a kind of ancient belief system kind of based on the Bible, and then a very modern system of taxation and firearm licenses, these two butting heads, like, they just don't work together, because one's a religious spiritual belief, and the other one is a kind of method of control, I guess. I don't know. But then I get in America, maybe they do fit really well together, because you get all these Bible Belt, like, conservative Christians who've got loads of guns. So anyway, it's so that's it. But I like having these conversations about it. This is another reason that I thought it was a good name, because I thought, if people want to bring it up and they've got opposing views, maybe, I don't mind. Then at least we're talking about it. As you said, like, it's mad how quickly things get forgotten, isn't it? It's sad how quickly things get forgotten. So yeah, it's a good conversation to have. I wonder what they teach. Yeah, I reckon they probably don't teach it in American schools, but then I guess America's a big place. But I definitely didn't learn about it. What I think I went through the same route as you, like, kind of looking into conspiracies around, like, government control and things like that. I think that's how I came across it. But you're right, it's not as publicly known as it should be.
No, and as I say, I could literally spend 4 or 5 hours just going down a rabbit hole with you and this or that. Maybe that's another conversation. But the point is, I always try to remind myself on a daily basis that this could happen at any point. It's not just particular to certain parts of the world. If we don't keep, this is why it fuels me. It's like, that's why I like being a creative person. It's like, if we don't keep guards of this could happen right now. And it's, and again, it goes back to the duality of it all. We are so lucky. For all the negativity, all the stuff, we haven't got guns pointed at us and saying, you've got to do this and you've got to do that. We're not being sent out to the trenches. And again, these are the lucky things. But like I said, I could spend hours talking about this, but that's a conversation. So, man, before we do sort of wrap this up, there's a couple of things. What's the plans for the band for the next year?
So we have so we've just released a new single called The World. and we released another one before that called Elevation. So for next year, we are playing at Manchester Punk Fest, which is a really good festival in Manchester, obviously, and then we'll be touring. We've got a new music video made. It's all finished. I'm just waiting to show it to you all. And I mean, I've got something to tell you. I'll tell you. Fuck it. We have a new album made as well. A whole new album finished.
Sweet.
So that all should come out next year. It's exciting. It's an exciting time for the band. We've been up north when we saw you. We played with Ceiling Demons. We've been all over Manchester, Newcastle. That was a really good tour. Thanks to everyone who came out, because the weather towards the end was absolutely brutal. And on the last night, it was like I thought we were going to get snowed in the venue in Birmingham, but there's still loads of people there. So, it's we couldn't do it without the fans. Like we literally couldn't. It's not that it's our lifeline. We all work, but we wouldn't make it from A to B if people weren't going to the gigs, buying merch, showing support. So we're really appreciative of that. But next year, yeah, a few festivals. But yeah, it's a lot of cool things planned. That's what bands say, right? A lot of good stuff coming. Big things coming. yeah. But loads of music and loads of visuals and loads of all sorts of cool stuff. Like a lot of the stuff we've been working on this year,
Well, hopefully, Martin, again, at some point next year, our paths will cross, the Demons and stuff like that. And again, I mean, I'll kind of go back to the beginning of the conversation. I mean, hopefully at some point in the future, I'll get up on stage and paint with you, because I would love to.
Yes.
I really would. I think it's, I just think it'd be a dream of mine. So hopefully that will be, fulfilled next year at some point.
That's a dream of mine as well. So we have to do that now. We have to do it. It will happen. I'll be really interested to see what comes out. And I'm sure you would be too, right? Because it just, the music goes through you and then it goes to your hand and then you make something, right?
Exactly. Well, like I say, I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure and honor. And again, I mean, hopefully, tonight will be the start of a creative experience tonight, and you'll come out with some great things. Before we do go, I'm going to leave you with the final word, Jack.
Yeah.
Final word's yours, my friend.
Oh, you leave me.
Go with it.
The final word of our conversation is: if you are creative, which you are creative, listener or watcher, viewer, you are creative. And if you haven't picked up a paintbrush or a pencil or anything like that in a while, then this week, over the Christmas season, or whenever this goes out, this is the time. Not to produce anything, not to show anybody, not to exhibit to the world, but just to play. Try and embody that the child within us, the one that used to just pick up pieces of paper or pick up an instrument and just fuck around for a little bit. So if you can do that, I can guarantee, if you do that, entertain doing that maybe once or twice a week, every day if you can, play for 15 minutes, half an hour, doodling, drawing, doing poetry, cringy stuff that you don't want to show anyone, stuff that you're like, oh my God, that's going straight in the bin. Just do it, get it out. And then other parts of your life might be improved by it. It opens it, because we have a creative mind, even if your job or you don't feel like a creative, you have it. You do have it in there. So if you exercise it and come out, you never know what you might find out about yourself, and also it might just chill you out a bit once a week or twice a week.
Perfect. Well, life is people.
Life is people.
Well, they say that life is people, and that people are angels, and that angels are devils, and the devils are me and you.